the desert. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of The Daily Squeeze. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe. Come on, y'all. I've talked about this before, but any type of growth in any forum that you go, whenever anyone talks about growth, they always talk about the fact that it is one of the most loneliest journeys that you will ever experience. Why? Well, let's think about a flower. A flower doesn't join the garden until it blooms. What does that mean? When you think about the process of a flower and how it grows, first the seed is planted. All the goodness is inside of the seed. It has to break through that shell. That's an isolation process in itself. The true self, the real thing, the real deal is inside of the seed, right? And it's not until it's planted in the ground, in its little space. You have to make the space for that seed to be planted. So once that seed is actually planted in the ground, then the process begins. It gets watered, the sunlight, all that photosynthesis starts to happen, all that good stuff, right? And then it begins to sprout. The rooting, again, individual process coming from the inside of the seed outward, breaking through that shell outward, and then going down, going deeper before it starts to now go up. And it's not until that what is going to be a flower breaks through the ground and grows to the height that it's supposed to and gets to the point where it begins to open and flower and bloom. That's when the flower that is now a flower, right, what it was intended to be when it was a seed, now gets to join the rest of the other flowers in the garden or in the field. Isolation, in some form or another, is critical to the growth of anything. Isolation is essential whenever you're talking about truly transforming and becoming who you want to be, right? And of course, in what I'm specifically referring to is when you want to dive deeper in Christ and you want to become that sanctified, transformed version of yourself through Christ, it has to be done in a state of isolation. Look at all the greats in the Bible, right? Christ himself would separate himself so that he can do what? Spend time with the Father, give himself, pray. Same thing, Moses had to be removed from where he was, right? Even though initially it was, there was a situation that happened that actually caused him to be removed. But in order for him to actually become Moses, he could not have had that epiphany, right? That the gods of Egypt are actually not the true gods, but the one true God, Jehovah, is. He couldn't have had that epiphany if he didn't separate himself from where he was. Sometimes when we talk about, right, we just talked about detoxing, it doesn't just stop at recognizing that whatever is around you or who's around you needs to be removed. Detoxing also involves removing yourself, removing those things and actually putting yourself in a bit of a box so that you can get over the hump, okay, of the condition that you were in before. It's almost in a sense like rehab. What is rehab? Rehabilitation. You are rewiring your mind to go from thinking one way to now thinking to another way. Especially, again, remember, we are mind, spirit, body, right? Mind, body, spirit, mind, body, soul. And it's the soul part that actually has to go through the change. Now, I don't know if you remember in the first episode, and if you haven't watched it, the card is right there. Make sure you go and watch that. But when you are going through this healing journey, again, remember, a table can't fix itself if it's broken. That has to come from an outside source. Now, there are many who provide their opinion on how you can receive healing spiritually or whatever and do it yourself or whatever. I don't believe that, because that, again, not my experience. I can only give you what I've experienced, and that's through Jesus Christ. Okay, so especially for those who are believers, especially for those, even if you haven't experienced Christ, but are looking for another way, isolating yourself with him is critical. Okay, absolutely critical. For me, this is something that is literally so near and dear to my heart, because about many of you may not know this, or many of you may if you're my friend and you're actually watching this because you support me, and shout outs to you because you are a real one. But I'm actually coming back from about a 2.5-year hiatus. And when I say hiatus, I mean I wasn't on social media. I literally would go to work and come home. I wasn't talking to anyone. And my situation was such that I also, even if I saw people on the street, had to be essentially as if, you know, I didn't know anyone. I just had to be in my own space. And the Lord did it that way in a very, for specifically, I don't know, even understand the reasons why, but the whole point was for me to be obedient about, you know, before I went on this hiatus, the Lord was pushing me and pushing me and pushing me to take a break from social media. And I was fighting it and fighting it and fighting it, because I'm just like, no, why? Like, I don't understand. I feel like things were kind of picking up for me. And, I don't know, like I was just enjoying, like, you know, just being in the mix and just knowing what was going on and whatever. There was a day when it was kind of like very abrupt, and I was like, okay, I need to take a break. The Lord is asking me to take a break, so I'm going to take a break. And I'm sitting here like, it's probably only going to be for like a week or maybe a day or whatever. That day turned into a week. That week turned into a month. That month turned into 24 plus. And yeah, your girl was gone. And it wasn't until November of last year where, well, before that, I felt that the Lord actually gave me the okay to come back on, but I kind of, I needed to reacclimate myself to social media, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I had to be obedient. And it wasn't until the Lord made me understand that, okay, I'm calling you, and here's what I want you to do, and here's what you're going to do. And since now that you've been obedient, here, listen, I'm going to need you to keep that and keep knowing my voice and hearing me and follow where I lead. And I've just been like, okay, ever since then. But in that time of isolation, y'all,